Welcome back, everybody, to Rob's MetalWorks. We are here at the home studio this evening, really for an unprecedented evening. We bring you an artist like none other that we've had in the past, Grammy award-winning guitar player. I have with me Mr. Chris Perez. Chris, welcome to the program, sir. It's definitely my honor to have you here.
Well, thanks for having me, Rob. It's special for me to be here, having seen you on TV. It's like you're the celebrity to me right now, so we're cool.
You humble me, man. Thank you so much for saying that, and I'm happy because I love working with and supporting musicians and artists like you. Definitely leading up to this evening has been an exciting time for us here at the show. We've gotten so much feedback from an overwhelming response from your fans all across the world, man. So it's an exciting time for them, all those people out there who are watching this interview. But I want this interview to kind of really get to the roots of who Chris Perez is, not really just a lot of all the surface stuff that everybody really knows about. And I know because I know you and some of your background, and I know that you were a big rock and metal fan early in your youth. So let's start there. Let's start from the beginning and talk about your youth and what got you into heavy music, or what led you to the path towards really grasping heavy music.
Ever since I can remember, I've always loved music. As a kid, my mom, I grew up single parent household, and my mother, she would play all kinds of music. Like in the mornings going to school, it was 55 KTSA pop radio. And then on the weekends when she's cleaning the apartment, it was Mozart, Bach, Tchaikovsky, classical stuff. And she was giving me this, and having spoken to her, now I know she was doing it purposely, but she was kind of turning me on to all kinds of different stuff. And the one thing she did leave out was the harder rock stuff, everything else but that. So I guess when I got old enough to, save up my own money and buy my own records, I was looking for my own voice and my own individuality, and growing up in that environment, I gravitated towards the rock stuff, she did have the Elvis, she turned me on to Elvis, so in that sense, I was a big Elvis fan as a kid. But then I started, I switched schools, and a lot of my friends that I started getting to know at 9 years old were into, like the first Van Halen record had just come out, had already been out, but I got turned on to it.
Yeah.
Then that was like my first taste in heavy music. To me at the time, that was considered heavy, and then I got turned on to Judas Priest, and then I got turned on to Ozzy Osbourne. And my cousin, one of my older cousins, also was a huge influence as far as everything that he turned me on to. He was right next door, and I'd always spend time over there, and he would play me these records, and that's where the seed kind of started to sprout, and then out of all the instruments, drums, bass, guitar, vocals, I'm not a very extroverted type person, which is what it takes to be a lyricist or a vocalist, because to me, I think that's the most important part. It's the instrument that's closest to your heart is your voice, but being a front man and all that stuff, I didn't see myself going there, so I kind of naturally gravitated towards guitar playing, but ran into problems in that I didn't have any encouragement or support from my mom. She was understandably afraid of all the stereotypical things of what she understood to be the rock scene. The drugs, the girls, the craziness, the run-ins with the law, and so I think in her way, it was a different time back then. In her way, I think kind of trying to protect me, she did not encourage that part of it. She did encourage the whole music thing, like she wanted me to be in band, and which I was, and thank God for that, because that's where I learned how to read and write music. you know, from the age of 10 years old. That's when I started learning all that stuff. So, you know, it made me work harder. I had to lie about my age to get a job at 15, which wasn't legal at the time, and save up, you know, and that's when I bought my first electric guitar and amplifier, and it just, from then on, you know, that's how I got into it, though. It's crazy.
You know, it's funny because you talk about a lot of significant things. One about, you know, obviously not having a lot of the resources to have the things that you wanted and going out there and working hard. And, you know, I'm a true believer, and I always have been until this day, that, you know, those people who really want it and work hard, you know, somewhere along the line there's some blessings thrown on those people, a little bit of luck thrown on those people. You were very fortunate enough that you, one, really kind of excelled in your talent as far as guitar playing. And at a young age, correct me if I'm wrong, you know, probably around 17, 18, you were asked to join the Shelly Lares band. And that's a pretty early start for an official kind of music career.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's funny because the person that got me into that was actually one of the people that got me into the heavier music, and he was a guitar player, excellent guitar player at the time. I mean, even in 8th grade, I remember his name is Robert Lares. I call him Tony. His middle name's Anthony, but you know, since we were kids, I called him Tony. And in middle school, he was a great guitar player. Mm-hmm. You know, so we became friends through band and whatever. And that was, you know, I was doing the local. I was here 16, 17, trying to learn how to write songs, or attempting to write songs at the time, and I had a little 4-track recorder, and Tony's band was doing some demo work that I was recording for them, and we sat down, had a conversation, and he told me, hey man, you know, my cousin, she sings, and we could do these quinceañeras and debuts and these shows, and you know, we'll make like, so we can make like $70. I don't know why that number sticks to my head. $70 in a weekend if we play a couple of times. And I'm thinking, wow, dude, $70. I'm in, right? He's like, I'll show you how to do it, you know. And so that's kind of how I accepted. I was like, yeah, let's do it, right? And of course, we didn't make that much money. It was really slow beginnings for us back then. But that was my first introduction into the business part of it, right. You know, which a lot of people don't understand, a lot of musicians, or they don't realize, is that that's a whole other thing that, I mean, unless you grow up in it, you know, your dad's a musician and he has to do stuff like that, then you might understand a little bit more, but I had none of that. So it was all new to me, and having to figure all these things out, and then it's like all I wanted to do was play guitar. You know, but then you have to deal with finances and kind of growing up and becoming an adult and paying your bills and things like that, and it all weighed heavy on me. But that was my introduction, and because of Shelly, I was afforded the chance to kind of put my toe in the water, you know what I mean? And I loved it. I thought it was cool.
With you know, your attraction towards rock music, do you kind of think back, and I kind of think about it too, is like if that opportunity never presented itself, were you kind of already thinking, I'm going to start my own rock or metal band and start playing out?
Yeah, I mean, the dream in 87, you know, you got to go back to 1987. The dream was, because how things were happening and what I had heard and read in magazines or whatever, I mean, you got to go to LA, you got to do the Sunset thing, you got to, you know, I mean, what's Motley Crue, Rat, Poison, all these bands that were quote unquote making it, that were coming from there. I mean, that was the place to be, you know. And at 17, your imagination is huge, but your knowledge is very little. So, you know, you kind of are ready to do anything. You think you're ready for anything. But yeah, I mean, that was basically the dream to do that. And I thought maybe if I saved enough money doing this other type of music, maybe I could go eventually and do that. But that didn't happen, you know. And then that was when I guess my name started going, like people just started, I guess, mentioning me in conversation, and that was when Selena's brother Aby had heard about me, and Selena and Shelly were friends at the time, and they were playing in San Antonio, and they had come to see me at a rehearsal, which I didn't know at the time. I thought they were just coming because they were, Shelly and Selena were friends and they were going to hang out and what have you. But later on I found out that's what they were doing. They were there to check out this guitar player, so yeah, it's weird. It's crazy how things work out, you know. And then AB was at rehearsal, and we happened to be playing a Pat Benatar song, like for fun. And he noticed that I was at that point I had become the musical director. So I was in the room with the guys in the band and like kind of, you got to do this part a little bit more like this or whatever, you know, guiding the guys. And he saw all that stuff, and I think that was when he thought, I could use this dude in my band.
It's very interesting you say that, because that's where I was kind of going to go with my next question. I think one of the things that has made you so kind of revered in music is that, you know, you're not only just a guitar player. I mean, you know, I know lots of guitar players who are shredders and great technical players, but they can't write a song for the life of them. And you, on the other hand, are not only a player but also a songwriter and a composer, and like you just used the word director as far as kind of managing the musicality of a group of musicians, and that's something that not all musicians have. And how, you know, is that a role that just kind of came naturally to you? Is that something you kind of said, I need to do this, or I want to do this because I really kind of want to focus, really take charge of what I'm doing musically?
Honestly, I think it started with the fact that, like, see, I never took any guitar lessons. As a youngster, as a teenager, as a young adult, I took pride in making that statement. I didn't take any guitar lessons. Now, as an adult, it's kind of ignorant. You know what I mean? The way I look back on it, and I think, well, I really used to believe that, when in actuality, if I would have, I'd be so much better than I am now, you know. But it was kind of like, for me, I mean, I followed my muses, and they led me to different things, because it's not that I get bored really quickly, but I didn't know anybody that was going to write a song for me, or in my bands that I was in at the time, or the guys that I was playing with, none of them were songwriters. So if I was going to get into that thing, it was going to have to start with me, you know. And I became a fan of songs. And I mean, I always was, I guess, you know, growing up listening to pop radio. And I mean, tell me Rob Halford and Glenn Tipton and KK Downing and Jakey Lee and Randy Rhoads, and all these guys are not great songwriters. You know what I mean? So in a sense, I was learning how to be a songwriter just by listening. You know, okay, here's the intro, then you got to write a verse section, you're going to double the verse section, then do you want to do a pre-chorus into the chorus, and then maybe go into a bridge right before the solo, you know what I mean? And then like you start coming up with these different formulas, and that's kind of how I got my start. And even with Shelly, thankfully for her, we wrote a couple of songs together, you know. I mean, on my part, you know, I look back and I'm like, wow, they did offer me a lot of freedom, you know, and to be recorded, and the first time you get to hear your songs and you're playing them on a record, I mean, those things are like, I was already living the dream, you know what I mean, back then. And this was before any of the real hardcore stuff started happening to me. So I was just always excited, man, and I think I brought that attitude to the people that I worked with, you know, because I mean, people are not going to work for you if they don't see you doing the work yourself. You know what I mean? You can sit there and talk all day, but you
have to lead by example.
Yeah, exactly. And I think I just naturally, being a guitar player in a rock band, especially, you're sort of looked at as the leader of the music thing. I mean, right? Most rock bands, you would think the guitar players, their names are all over all the songwritings. They write the riffs. The singer might come in and write the lyrics and the melodies to go on top of it, but the music, you know what I mean? And I think that's kind of why I did the whole guitar thing and took songwriting so seriously.
you know, of course, you know, people know that, you know, after, you know, your short stint working with Shelly, that you were asked to join Selena and Los Dinos, and really kind of, at that point, there was no going back. I mean, music was your career path.
Right.
And, you know, I don't want to rehash, I told you earlier, I don't want to rehash a lot of, you know, the career at that time, because everything was very well known and documented. But I do want to ask you, when you think back, you know, at that time period, you know, right? You know, you did several records, and the band was touring a lot, and, you know, you were young, and, you know, your relationship with Selena was blossoming. Let me first ask you, when you think back, what is the best non-musical memory you have of that time?
That I mean, for me, I finally had what I had been searching for in not just musically, but in friendship, in camaraderie, in people pushing towards one vision, towards one goal, you know. And you know, or I knew. I mean, I could have been wrong. Nothing. Let's say we didn't have any success, or let's say we didn't go to the level that we did. I would have still been a happy camper, because I had what I was looking for. I've never really been about all that other stuff. You know, to me, to be in a good band with people that are pushing towards the same goal, that was always the finish line for me. You know, it wasn't ever about money or fame. I can promise you that I never sat on the edge of my bed and learned all the stuff that I learned as a guitar player and thought, man, I can't wait to be on TV and do interviews and all this other stuff. You know, I got thrown into it because of the situation, but at the time it was just guitar playing, songwriting, being a part of this thing. And in my opinion, and they'll probably tell you differently because they're that cool, but in my opinion, everybody was better than me. You know what I mean? So I was always doing my best to keep up. That was my attitude. It might not have been true, but that's how I felt. And you know, you know, a lot of people don't remember that back then we weren't playing sold out shows. I mean, it was still a work in progress, right. And we were still on an independent. No. Actually, it just signed with Capitol, but it wasn't like we would do shows and there'd be 10 people there sometimes. And then there was Abraham, you know, the manager of the band, and Selena's dad, and he would be like, y'all are gonna do the sets that y'all are contracted to do, and you're gonna do them, you know, as best you can. And I learned a lot from that work ethic. You know, it taught me. You know, sometimes it's not easy. Sometimes you don't want to do it. But there's nothing like that fulfillment you have at the end of doing it. You know, at the end of doing those shows. It never felt like, what am I doing? You know, I always felt like I was fighting the fight. You know, and to have those guys and to be a part of something that I thought, at the time, before the rest of the world knew it, I thought it was something special. I knew this didn't happen. I knew that I was a lucky guy, you know, to be in that situation. And some of the people that came in and out of that organization didn't feel that same way. And I just couldn't understand it. I'm like, what, you don't see it? You know, you don't feel it, you don't, and they didn't. And it's just, I guess it's cool to sit here and go, dude, I was right. You know, because, and again, at the end of the day, it's all about how you feel. It's not like a contrived. You're not, you know, it was something that hadn't been done before, that type of band. You know, obviously, after we started selling records, people started trying to put bands together. Oh, let me get the rock guitar player. Let me get the music major in our keyboard, like, 'cause, you know, the Dinos, you break it down, it was me, I was the rock guitar player that came in, and I was the last piece. And then you had Selena, who obviously is just a force of nature, you know. Then A.B., who's the bass player, but he's the one that had the vision. He's the one that put it together. I could use that guy, that guy, that guy, that guy, that guy. And I could do these songs that I want to do. So in a sense, it became a formula. It wasn't a formula. I mean, in his mind it was, because he put it together based on what he was thinking. But after that, dude, you would see record labels trying to put bands together like that, or management companies trying to put bands together. Let me get the rock guitar player, but you see, they're not us. They don't sit in a room together and work together and create the songs that they're playing, which is what we did. They would hire a band like that, or they would put a band together like that, and then they would get a girl singer, but then they would get a songwriter to come in and they would pitch you these songs, and it was, which is cool, you know, no disrespect, but that's not what we were.
Well, I think too, like, you know, the part of that kind of chemistry was the fact that, you know, these people were family, and you became part of that family.
Yeah. I mean, man, if I could explain how much I miss that part of it, because on one hand it was a lot of work, on the other hand it wasn't as much work as it is now for me, you know what I mean? Back then it was like almost like just the elements fit so well together that things just kind of happened, you know. I can't explain it. It's like there's a lot of great musicians out there. There's a lot of cool songwriters and what have you, but you have to, you know, it's how everything fits together. And when people try to do something that's already been done before, it's already like not organic.
Right.
You know, and unfortunately that happens all the time in the music industry. You know, and there's a lot of great bands out there that have come from that. But still, I mean, to be able to say that I was a part of something like that, I mean, it's a source of pride, and I'm just thankful for it.
What about musically? What were there any? Is there any shows that you performed with Selena and Los Dinos that will live with you forever? Any performances that you were especially proud of at you know, at any particular event, or maybe, you know, at a local regional show? Anything that sticks out in your mind for any particular reason?
Just the first time. Imagine this. I can't even believe I'm able to say this, but the first time playing to a crowd of 90,000 in Mexico is just, you know, because you don't see it until that moment you walk on stage, and it's like you got this lump in your throat. It's like you're trying to swallow, you're trying to look cool, but it's like there's no words to describe it, and they're going crazy, and you're playing, you know, you remember being in this little bedroom with the guys in the band and working on these songs that they're going crazy over. You know, I mean, same thing as like when you hear it on the radio.
Yeah.
You know, and then again, it's like I don't think anybody really knows how something like that happens. It's just, it's meant to be, or something, because if we knew, then everybody would be doing it. Right. You know what I'm saying? And it just kind of snowballed into this big thing. And I will say now, I mean, if anybody deserved it, she did. You know, yeah. Selena did, and we all had her back. So, yeah. And she had ours too. So it was just an amazing time. It was crazy.
You know, we talk about, you know, I can see, you know, this brightness in your face as you recollect some of these feelings and memories you had. But, you know, we know what happened, you know, and that caused the end of the band. And there was a time period after Selena's passing where you had kind of just been dormant, you know, and rightfully so. Did you stop doing music during that time? What were you doing anything musically during that time? Did you even think about music, or was that something that you just wanted to put behind you until you kind of healed up?
No, I knew for a fact that I couldn't do the music that I was doing before with Selena. I just couldn't see it. I was already just trying to deal with the loss and the grief and stress, and in a weird way, I mean, it's like I didn't have any time to just breathe. Yeah. Because as soon as everything happened, there was this explosion of media and the press, and just the house was surrounded by fans, and I couldn't even take my trash out, dude. You know, and there's so many stories I could tell. I mean, like, you know, around that time of how crazy life became. Like, if I thought it was crazy before, magnify it times 100, you know. And it was something that I never asked for. I never wanted to be in the spotlight. I never craved that stuff, you know. I never wanted to be that guy. It just, shit happened and I had to deal with it, and I didn't handle it. I mean, it's like anything else in life, you know. You look back and you go, wow, I could have actually used it in a better way.
Sure.
You know what I mean? But at the time, being the way that I was, I shut down. You know, like, basically, I don't want to do, you know, F this, F that, I don't care. And I became that guy. But as far as the music, I never stopped. And, you know, I've never said this before, but it was really, like, not much time had passed since Selena had passed away when I started thinking, I'm going to do the rock thing. I'm going to do what I've always wanted to do. But I felt guilty because it was so soon.
Right.
Like, I really shouldn't be thinking about this right now. You know what I mean? I should be dealing with all these other things. And believe me, there was a lot of stuff in front of me that needed to be dealt with. I should be dealing with that. But you know what? Looking back, I mean, I'm a musician. It's what I do.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can blame me for thinking about music, you know, whether it's a week or two after everything. I mean, it's what I do. It's almost a habit, you know. So there was that whole dealing with the guilt. So I didn't say anything to anybody. You know, I just thought maybe. And meanwhile, I'm sitting there with my guitar and I'm writing riffs, and actually wrote a lot of lyrics at that time that ended up being songs on Resurrection. So, you know, yeah, I mean, just like I thought about maybe I should do the rock thing, on the other end, of being kind of flip-flop at the time, my brain, you know, everything going on, I was thinking, man, maybe I should get out of the music industry. Maybe I don't want to do this anymore. But as more time went on, I kind of said, if I'm going to do it again, it's going to have to be on my own terms, the way I want to do it, with the people that I want to do it with. And I'm not going to settle for any less. And I did it. I put the band together that I wanted to put together. I worked with the people that I wanted to work with. Some of the songs that when I was writing them, I'm a San Antonio boy. I'm a local, down home. I got my records. I jam, you know, with some of the artists that I mentioned before, and a lot more. You know, they run the gamut as far as stylistically, whatever. Yeah. But I would write songs. I mean, man, I'll tell you an example. I wrote a song called Solo Tu, and I thought, dude, this thing that Cheap Trick did on this one song, come on, that'd be awesome, right? Well, you know what? Here I am. Fast forward a year later, I'm in A&M recording studios, which is where a lot of my idols and heroes have recorded records at. I mean, it's Herb Alpert's old place, and we started working on that. Cheap Trick, my management was able to get them there in the studio with me working, dude. Singing the background vocals to it, and I'm looking at my singer, I'm going, when in the fuck did this happen, dude?
Sweet.
Like, it was amazing, you know, and that was when I kind of started seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, you know, going through situations like that and working with artists. I had the dude who played drums on my record was one of my favorite drummers of all time, which is Vinny Colaiuta, plays with Sting.
Yeah.
And he showed, and they told me my record label, because they gave me a wish list, right? And this was the Hollywood Records. They gave me a wish list, and I was like, dude, this my whole life I've been thinking about all this stuff, right? And they did it. Dude, I got it all.
Wow.
I got my drummer that I wanted. I got the bass player that I wanted. I had the mariachi section that I wanted to collaborate and do it into a rock song that I had been working on. I was able to do that. And just all kinds of new stuff, you know. And the record, I mean, it was like finally, okay, I have my voice. It was my first record. It was exactly how I wanted to do it. I had the machine behind me. And, you know, I didn't want to go big. I wanted to do the record I wanted to do.